we're going to impart a lot of information to you today. So we're assuming you came ready to open your hearts and open your minds to information. And we often do it with multifaceted when we have more time, where we give you time to contemplate, go out, and really process the information and come back and dialogue. But we're not going to have time for that, given the rigorous claims we made in the abstract. So we'd just like to give you this information, because our stuff is really about our intellectual understanding of the nature of the universe. There's so much more that goes into human and our experiences, but one really important thing is our mind and what we understand, what our core assumptions are. So that's what we're addressing, is those core assumptions about the nature of the universe. So we'll get started.
Whew, so welcome. This is a real treat. This is only our second time at Unity Village. When was it? Last June. We actually got to give the Sunday sermon, which was wonderful, and then do a workshop afterwards, which was really well attended. So it was,
which Sherry attended. Cherie.
That's right.
Lovely
yes.
Cherie.
And another really lovely lady attended who is not here today because she's running for Attorney General of the state of Missouri, Teresa Hensley. And otherwise she would have been here. But
any of you from Missouri, vote for Teresa. She's prosecuting attorney.
No commercials.
Yeah.
That's right. Or commercials. Yeah, she seems to be a really good person, and she firstly loved the book. And have you all seen our book? At least seen it? Yes. Yeah. We should have one here we could wave around. There it is. Thank you. So, just to take this interesting example of Teresa, who came to this workshop, bought the book, it really changed her life, and then she decides to run for, she was a public prosecutor here, she decides to run for Attorney General, but she had to raise $1 million, and she was having trouble with that. So what's really cool is one day the phone rings, it's Teresa for Connie. Connie, how much do you charge for consultations?
I know you can fix this for me. I know I'm blocking it. I know you can.
So there's a sort of strange practical example of how, it's a political thing she's doing, but she's applying the principles of this work that we've been developing and presenting over we've been together for 13 years this year and been developing and doing this work. It's also getting into some very interesting places right now. Like sometimes you think you're spinning your wheels and nothing, we're not selling a lot of books and all of those things that you're sort of supposed to be doing. Supposed to, whatever that means. But this work and this book is getting into some very interesting high-level places right now, so that's just some good news on our part. So, here we are at Unity Village, and first time attending the ICM conference, which is all about subtle energies. What does that mean? To me, that means the invisible. That which is invisible. We really have difficult, science has had enormous trouble studying consciousness. Why? For heaven's sake, we're all conscious, at least that's my theory. As long as we're awake, we're conscious, we're alive. Consciousness could be something that's universally studied and conclusions drawn from those studies that inform our lives. Is that the case? I don't think so. So we have sort of two options in the present, or the paradigm that has persisted for the last, say, several hundred years. One is the mechanistic worldview that I, as a scientist, grew up with in physics. The universe is a giant mechanical machine. It doesn't know we exist. It's not conscious. Clearly contains consciousness, but not conscious. The other one is the one that's propagated by most of the mainstream religions. Some patriarch, someone who looks a little bit like Osama bin Laden, way up in the sky. He's way over there, and if you're good, you go hang out with him, and if you're bad, you go down there. Some strange paradigm like that. I don't know who made that up. And those are the two options we've generally been given. And we are presenting an entirely other third possibility, which is universal, I would say, at this conference. I don't think there's anybody who, at this conference, this weekend, any of you in this room, who feel that the universe is simply a giant clockwork. And all of the religions are, that's challenging stuff. I personally really like Unity because it's one of these new thought churches that really, I think our work really resonates with Unity and Science of Mind and some of those churches. Okay? So, point being, the human psyche, we believe, has become split over the last several centuries, ever since Newton and the mechanistic worldview. Prior to that, maybe it was more integrated. But we have found ourselves in kind of a schizophrenic situation where we are divided. Our society is actually divided among ourselves. There's the religious ones and the science ones, and never the twain shall meet. And if you talk about evolution, you're busted. And all of those kind of odd phenomena. So the work we present today, we're overtly saying, has the potential to heal in both a sort of psycho-spiritual, personal manner, and also if there are people out here who are therapists of any kind. We really feel that this has value from a therapeutic standpoint, because a lot of our problems or challenges as human beings come to us through the belief system we have inherited through generations of our ancestors. And in our own lives, by the age of 3 or 5 years old or 7 years old, we've already accumulated all of the sort of the set in stone assumptions, core beliefs of our society, whether from our parents, our school teachers, our buddies, television, the ministry of church, whatever, the imam at the mosque, whatever. And these are not things that we consciously chose. At that age, we didn't have the analytical ability to say, well, yeah, I agree, or I don't agree. We simply heard it from an authority figure, we assimilated it, put it inside where it hasn't been seen the light of day since. I would say, do not really know what our fundamental assumptions are. When was the last time anyone in this room had someone walk up to them on the street and say, excuse me, what are your 10 core beliefs? It's not something this culture does. We just don't do that. We don't examine them. So this is about examining core beliefs, exposing them, and then what we've done is to propose 10, you see the subtitle of the book, 10 assumptions for a new paradigm. So we'll go into some definitions of some terms because we use terminology in a slightly different way. We're going to speed through it, but not so fast that we lose you. So let's go to the next slide, this is where we're coming from. We're coming from a place beyond duality, and I think Connie would like to pick it up at this point.
Yeah, because we're really taking the consciousness exploration to another level. We feel that the consciousness field has hit a ceiling of within the duality construct, that we can't get beyond the idea that there is something beyond right and wrong. Okay? So here's Rumi, thank goodness for Rumi, who has this beautiful saying, because I assume everyone in this room has some reverence for Rumi. He's a well-established visionary.
Out beyond ideas of wrongdoing and right doing, there is a field. I'll meet you there. So there's a place beyond black and white, good and bad.
So that's the field we're sitting in here. So we want you to open to that possibility. Okay, it's a very big deal. We have a major habit of thinking in terms of right and wrong. So just flow with us on this, okay? So here's our trust frequency, 10 assumptions for new paradigm. Change your assumptions and the world changes with you. So what this work is about is how does the universe work, period. Okay, the mechanics of the universe. So it's not about spiritual beliefs, it's not about Native American belief systems or ceremonies or anything, because what we're bringing is indigenous cosmology and quantum science. We don't even mention that. So that's an important the thing to mention right here, and I didn't put a slide in about that. What our work is an indigenous cosmology quantum science synthesis. So it's a synthesis that brings something new from the two of those. It's neither one nor the other. It's something that we've perceived from our life experiences of spending 30 years with visionary native elders, and he grew up with the Zulus and the Bushmen of the Kalahari, and he's also a scientist. We're not even going into that sort of story right now about us and how we got to the quantum science indigenous cosmology piece of this whole thing, because we really want to give you the information. It's in our book and it's on the online, our stories.
And I think it's legitimate to say that we regard you as serious graduates in this work. In other words, we're not speaking to beginners here, we're speaking to practitioners who know this stuff already. So how do we put what we've been hearing in this conference, how do we put the science, how do we put all this stuff into effect in our personal lives and in the lives of our clients and our families and our children and our future?
And the good news is that Mr. what's his name, we just spoke this morning?
Claude.
Mr. Swanson. Andrew
Dr.
said
Swanson.
he just backed up my most outlandish statements and visions. Okay, because Andrew's job is to put the science behind what I have perceived from being with native elders for 30 years, and as well as his own take on it that he brought to the book. So that's the good news, guys. So if you were there and listened carefully, you will say, whoa, okay, this resonates with Mr. Swanson and everyone else who's speaking, actually. So so just want you to know that that's what this is about. The mechanics of the universe. How does it work? We don't understand how it works from our perception. Okay, this whole thing is our perception. So we're not saying dogma. We're not saying this is absolutely true. We're saying you have to take it as absolutely true if you want it to change your life. So as an exercise, we suggest that you give some thought to taking this construct, because it's a construct, as absolutely true, and then you can put your life on it. Okay? That's how you get into the trust frequency. There's no such word as risk. There's no such word as doubt. There's only, yes, I trust, I know, I am loved by a conscious, loving, abundant universe, and I'm going to act from that place. Okay? So this is how does the universe work. So Andrew mentioned the models that we have so far, and we're bringing in the consciousness of unconditional love. Because one time I asked the universe, I said, if there's a plan, is there a planner? And what I got was, no. It's the consciousness of unconditional love coming to understand itself.
Is everybody able to hear well? In the back? Thank you.
So that's the model we're bringing to the party.
So be prepared.
Be prepared to resolve 6 of the major paradoxes that have plagued humanity for millennia. So we thought we could make a bold statement at this conference. Okay, so what is a paradox? Anybody want to read that? That's readable, right?
Statement or proposition that, despite apparently sound reasoning from acceptable premises, leads to a conclusion that seems senseless, logically acceptable, or self-contradictory.
Okay, so everybody knows what a paradox is.
So
Something that just doesn't add up, doesn't make sense. It contradicts everything I've been raised with, everything I believe, and it's not, you know, you're telling me this, come on, that's not even, come on,
So,
you know, what are you in La La Land?
So we're going to present and resolve 6 paradoxes in an hour and 20 minutes. Okay, here we go, or an hour and 10 minutes. So to resolve a paradox, we must be willing to accept some things as absolutely true. We've been
As
there.
in science or mathematics, you've got to have your axioms, fundamental things that we're going to agree to say, okay, we're going to suspend disbelief, we're going to go to a place where perhaps the brave dare not go, or perhaps the brave do dare go. Or where
That's what I say, you go where the brave dare not go once you get into this, because it takes a lot of knowing that it's all okay. All right, so these are the overarching paradoxes. And so we're going to run through this sort of summary, and then we're going to get into our definitions and assumptions. So we have an illusion that seems real, that makes the real seem impossible. I'd say that's a paradox. Would you? We have Newton saying it's a finite world. We've accepted the Newtonian paradigm. It's a finite world. It's a mechanistic finite world. And we have quantum science now that is showing us that it's really just the opposite, that it's infinite possibilities. So I would call that an overarching paradox. I call this, and you have sheets there where I put this all on one graph. And Andrew, when he looked at this a couple of years ago, when this came to me, he's like, that's too much on one page. But so I've divided it into this PowerPoint. So you'll be able to take that home and remind yourselves of what we've been through today. But I call that the macro world. Okay, so and then we'll get to the micro world, which is the human paradoxes. So here are paradoxes 1 and 2. We see things as not love. The things that happen in our lives, we see them as not love. What does that make us?
Contradicted.
And a victim.
Yes.
Okay? What we're presenting is that there is only love. Okay? So, and actually Andrew wanted to go from right to left, and I would rather go from left to right.
I wanted to go from left to right.
You wanted to go from left to right. I want to go from right to left, but we didn't have time to change it. So actually, I want to start on the right side and go to the left side.
Okay.
So we're proposing there is only love. Okay? And in that paradigm, everything's okay. Everything's perfect. In the not love, if you don't take that as absolutely true, you have not love, then you have the victim-perpetrator duality model. Okay? So,
or victim of circumstance, or
yeah.
however we choose to feel like a victim.
Right, but the whole victim-perpetrator thing is huge, right?
There's the difference between seeing yourself as a victim of your circumstances, e.g. of birth, or having chosen those circumstances for a purpose.
Yeah,
Exactly.
Well, we'll get into that.
Exactly. And you'll see how we deal with that.
The overarching act
Thank
of
you.
free will.
Yeah.
Thank you. So then there is the conscious universe that we're proposing, which has meaning. A mechanistic universe that has no meaning. It's purposeless. I mean, so what? It's just going on and its gears are just running and we're just cogs in the wheel. So what? So, do you want to do a couple?
All right. So one of the things we humans have invented is this concept of time. Now, a lot of indigenous people don't have the same concept of time as we Westerners do. They're also not driven by time. They're never in a rush the way we Westerners tend to be. So if we live in a state without time, what does that mean? We sense that there's something beneficial to live in a timeless state, because stress is one of our biggest problems in our current lives, cause of a lot of illness. So in a timeless state, it's a term that Connie came up with called infinite balance that I love. And if we live in a time-bound reality, it tends to bring anxiety into our lives.
Big time.
Yeah.
Big time. And in the native way, I don't know if any of you have an association with Native Americans, but it's called spirit time or Indian time. Everything happens in its proper time. So.
Yeah. And if we say, but there's only now, the power of now, there's only this present moment, wait a minute, I can remember 20 years ago, you telling me that's not real? Or I know there's going to be a future 10 years down the road, you're telling me that's not real? So this is one of those, this is a paradox. Why don't you go to the next one?
Okay, so the next one is free will. That's a huge paradox, because so many of us feel that circumstance just runs our life. Well, we're proposing that that circumstance is in fact divine, and we resolve that paradox. And then, so in a deterministic universe is hopelessness. Why, so what? Something's going to come up and do me in.
So
right?
one of these great, every philosopher from the beginning has tried to figure out this free will versus determinism thing. Is everything predestined, or do we have control every step of the way, or somewhere in between?
So then there's oneness and separation. In oneness, we cooperate. We understand that we are all one. And I believe that the veil is going to lift, and we're going to understand and get it, the whole human race, and we're going to lay down the weapons of war in our lifetime, because it's just going to become an absurdity. And separation brings conflict. And then there's the upward spiral. We believe we're on an evolutionary upward spiral, which brings trust, that everything is working out okay. And then on the other side, destruction. Are we going down? Are we destroying the earth and destroying ourselves, and everything's going to hell in a handbasket?
That's called the hell in a handbasket model, if anybody wants to adopt that.
So that brings fear. So here, just a little graphic, that separation, not love, mechanistic, time, determinism, destruction, leads us down to a lower frequency. Okay, the idea of frequency is that every frequency has its own laws. Okay, so we're in a ball game that was created in a lower frequency, and the laws and systems that we've set up are in alignment with a lower frequency. But there are other frequencies. So here, this is what happens in a lower frequency: conflict, victim, powerless, anxiety, fear. Does that somehow describe our reality, our consensus reality at this time? A bit. So, in the new paradigm, you want to do that?
Okay, so obviously the arrow goes upward into a higher vibrational frequency, and when we speak of, say, the trust frequency, we're not really necessarily talking about a measurable megahertz or kilohertz, gigahertz type of scientific, although I suspect it does become measurable in some way at some point. Heart math and ions, for example, are becoming more and more capable of measuring such things. But I'm a 60s guy, and it's much more like that. You remember that song about picking up good vibrations? Mm-hmm. We all know the difference between good vibrations and bad vibrations. It's really that. It's an inner, it's an experiential thing. This vibration thing we're talking about, the frequency thing.
Which you probably are all really attuned to, because these are energetic healers.
Right.
Yeah.
But I personally get anxious from time to time, and I can tell the difference. My body tells me this is a lower vibe. And at times I'm filled with love and trust and joy, and I can very much tell the difference.
So, conscious love, free will, upward spiral, timeless oneness leads us up. Did you want to say something else?
No, go ahead.
And in this frequency, there's meaning, everything's okay, we're powerful, we trust, there's infinite balance and cooperation. Is that the frequency and what we actually expect and want for our children? Universal humanity? There's something in us that knows it's possible, but we don't know how to get there. There's a party going on, is what we say. We're all invited, but we just don't know how to get there. And what we're going to bring you is some tools to how to get there. And Henry David Thoreau, just to give you this idea of frequency and the laws being expanded, everyone knows Henry David Thoreau, I assume. In the conclusion to Walden, he says, "I learned this, at least, by my experiment. When one walks confidently in the direction of his dreams, He will pass a certain boundary. He will experience a success unexpected in common hours. The laws that apply to him will be expanded, or new laws will be made in his favor, and he will live with the license of a higher order of beings. Okay?
That's from, in my opinion, the greatest of American philosophers, Henry David Thoreau, who just saw things in a way that's pretty uncommon. You know, even Emerson didn't go there. So this is what we're proposing to present. We've spent about a half hour of our, hang on one sec. So I think you have, this is a quick overview of this afternoon's presentation. Now, we need to get some business done. In other words, we're going to use some terminology in ways that are, sometimes you will all have, this would be the way you understand a certain word or phrase we use. At times, you might not. So we have some rather uncommon ways of using terminology. So we're going to go into a brief list of definitions that will also move us in the direction of that common ground we were talking about earlier on, the axiomatic or foundational understanding that if we can get somewhere close to what we're talking about, then we'll be able to say, okay, how about living life from this place of trust, as opposed to that place of doubt or fear or anxiety. Okay?
Yeah.
Definitions.
Okay, here are the definitions. Assumption.
Hang on, I'm gone.
Oh, there you go. Assumption.
So most people know what an assumption is. It's a core belief which we take to be true without question, right? An assumption is something we don't have to think about. You know, an assumption could be the neighbors are dangerous, or anything. It could be a negative
I have
assumption.
to go to work to survive.
Or it could be a
How about
positive
that?
assumption, you know?
We made that up,
Yeah.
you know, kids.
There's an assumption. You love me. I'm going to assume that. So assumptions can be anything at all. They're totally neutral in terms of value, but they are things we do not think about. What's a paradigm? We talk about a new paradigm. So our book is subtitled 10 Assumptions for a New Paradigm. What's a paradigm? It's simply a set of assumptions. You assemble a list of fundamental beliefs, opinions, and that becomes, all taken together, becomes a paradigm. So we have the scientific, the mechanistic scientific paradigm, or we have the, you know, the paradigm that comes along with a certain ethnic group, or a paradigm that comes along with a certain religion. It is simply the sum total of our belief system, our worldview, that really determines how we experience the world.
And it creates a consensus reality, and what we're saying is that we have the free will. Once we understand how the whole universe works, that we can change our own personal reality. You know, people that have magic just happen, okay? It's just that they're in another frequency where magic is a given. So, you know, the loaves and the fishes, you know, all that stuff that we call miracles are a given in another frequency. So here we go. Now this is an important one. Humanity, a collection of divine, autonomous, sovereign beings who have chosen to incarnate on earth to learn and grow on their soul's journey to wholeness, each with an individual purpose and a unique gift.
So you see what I mean? You could open the dictionary and look for the word humanity. They wouldn't say anything remotely like that, would they? So that's
key. This is foundational to changing one's life and one's understanding of one's place in this, what we call conscious loving universe.
So to be clear, these are your definitions?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
You'll find them in the book.
It's a construct. The definitions and the assumption are a construct on the nature of the universe and humanity's place in it.
This is the terminology we use to arrive at our
Really, I get it.
Again, love. Go to the dictionary. Does it say this?
No?
The fundamental unifying and creative force of the universe.
So seeing love with a capital L as really a quantum phenomenon, part of the most foundational stuff of which the universe is made. This universe consists, this is what we're saying, entirely of love. You could call it chi, you could call it, it's kind of close to a fundamental particle, which is not the Higgs boson, but it's the gluon. Have you heard of the gluon? That appears to be that which sort of creates and sustains the universe. Ooh, well, the Higgs boson now has got a little creator edge in there as well. But doesn't that remind you of something in Hinduism? You have the creator and the sustainer. You have your Vishnu and your Shiva and your Brahma and Atman and all of those amazing terminologies. This material is not new. It's 5,000 years old. It goes back to the Vedas.
So, free will, the right to choose one's frequency.
And hence one's reality.
Okay.
Because we can actually train ourselves to raise, and we know with biofeedback and so on, it is entirely possible to be in a certain state and raise it up a sliding scale. And as we rise up through the levels of frequency, we experience a different reality.
And people say to me, well, you want to change people. I'm like, no, I don't want to change people. I just want to give them information because they have the free will to choose their reality. That's their right. Why would I judge it or want to change it? You know? No, I'll just offer the information and people have every right. And I just bless anybody that says, I don't believe that. Well, that's fine. I don't care.
Don't have to.
You get your reality. It's all yours. You know, and then all of a sudden, it puts a responsibility on us. You know, so all of a sudden, whoa. I think that might make people think a little harder about what they believe. Oh, yeah, you know, nobody's forcing me and nobody's judging me and I get to choose it. So do I really want to think this? So here's the trust frequency, where the soul's destiny awaits with more abundance, balance, freedom, and joy than we can fathom, where the true nature of the universe is experienced. Okay, so this is key as well, because there's something that the universe wants for us that's there that we can't fathom given our construct, our, I don't like to say conditioned minds, because that sounds like somebody conditioned our minds, but that we accepted because of our true nature. We knew as infants and as little children a lot of things that we decided to put aside so that we wouldn't get put in the corner at school, that we would fit in and show up and daddy and mommy would be proud of us and all that stuff. So we know, but we've set it aside. That's the split in the psyche. The stuff we put aside. When we went off to school, we put our little spirit on the bed with our teddy bear and said, bye-bye, spirit, I'll be back. I'm going to school now. Because there's no room for me and who I truly am at school. I have to tell the teacher what the teacher wants to hear, so I will survive. So nobody did it to us. We responded from survival to the construct that was there. And it made sense, because we would have got put in the corner, we would get put in jail, we would get put in the loony bin, etc. So it was an intelligent decision, but it did split our psyche.
So this is pretty normal. You'd probably find a definition something like this in the dictionary, right? Circumstance, the seemingly uncontrollable outward events that influence our decisions. Mm-hmm. And we'll be talking quite a bit about the nature of circumstance. And when I first met Connie, she had this take on circumstance. And I went, that's amazing.
Circumstance loves us more than we do.
This whole idea of being a victim of circumstance, and we've come to realize that we're actually not victims of circumstance, we're beneficiaries of circumstance, because every time circumstance intervenes in what we think we're doing, a whole other reality unfolds. We thought we were heading from A to B, and all of a sudden, whoop, we're somewhere else doing something else, saying whoa, thank you.
Down the road.
I would never have thought of that. Thank you, circumstance. And as Connie says, circumstance loves
Loves us more than we do.
Seems to know something we don't know. So
Because
what's that?
we think from this construct, to be successful, be loved, be accepted, make daddy proud, make mommy proud, get the girl. These are all girls, so there's no guys in here.
You
Get the guy, you know. You got to show up in a certain way. But circumstance says, no, you're going to do something else. And it's like, oh my God, I'm a failure. All that stuff that goes along with not accomplishing what one had in mind, because one's soul had something else in mind. And as you'll see, we bring that in. So here's consciousness.
So consciousness, from our perspective, there's two fundamental types of consciousness that we can experience as humans. One is simply the what's the word? I'm lost for the word. The sort of undiscriminated consciousness of the universe. The universe, from our perspective, is a conscious, living entity. It is simply a field of consciousness. It's 100% entirely a field of consciousness. But within that are humans. And humans experience consciousness constantly. We don't necessarily experience consciousness consciously, because most people don't think about being conscious or the experience of being conscious. And trees and plants and animals and birds and everything, dolphins, are all conscious in variations of the way that humans are conscious. But humans are conscious in the following ways, each of which can be described by words beginning with the letter A, interestingly. For some reason, and there are others, you could certainly say, someone could say, oh, what about such and such? What? Yeah, but we said we're going to stop at 7. So we have 7 words beginning with the letter A, and some of them are active. They're things that we do, and in some cases we're more receptive. So what I wrote here is, I described them as the active and passive phenomena of awareness. And if you go to the dictionary, that's all it will give you. Consciousness is awareness. If you're unconscious, you're unaware, or if you're unaware, you're unconscious, and vice versa. It doesn't go any deeper, but it's much deeper. You know, you remember the film, What the Bleep Do We Know? And we went to, I called it a bleep fest. There were about 900 people. Some of you might have been there in Santa Monica back in 05, I think it was, or 06. And somebody in the audience said to the scientists up on the stage, excuse me, can you define consciousness? And I think there were 5 people up there. And guess what? They couldn't. They were unable to come up with a coherent definition of consciousness. And this has really troubled thinkers, psychiatry, philosophy, and hard science. Good luck defining consciousness. But when you just think about it, well, what's from the operator standpoint, from the inner standpoint, what is my consciousness? Well, obviously it's awareness, but it's much more than that. So, awareness, assumption, is an assumption. An assumption is a part of my consciousness. Attitude has a lot to do with how I deploy my consciousness. Attention, I can choose to put my attention on you or on you or on you. Attention is one of those active...
On the news.
On the news or on something else entirely. Alignment. How am I orienting myself in existence? What actions do I take?
This is the kicker. Action.
Do I talk the talk and then do I walk the talk? What actions do I take and what determines the actions I take? This is another certainly a manifestation of my consciousness. And finally, allowing the trust that it takes to just, hey, I've done everything I can, I've done my best to figure it out, and I'm going to step back and allow the universe to manifest. So Connie put this entire collection of 7 words into a sentence that she loves. And hang on.
I just had a question. Can you go back a slide? I want to see then how you defined it previously.
Okay. Which one?
This right here.
Universal
I'm
consciousness,
sorry, yeah,
which
the
is
primordial life energy, the undifferentiated, that's the word I was looking for, the undifferentiated life energy. The
Which
universe
is
is
love.
alive. It's a
Which is-
field of living, loving life.
Okay. I was just curious why the folks at What the Bleak Do We Know didn't use a similar dialogue.
Yeah.
They hadn't introduced, love was never mentioned there. It just wasn't there.
No.
Yeah.
Right.
And Jessica, I mean,
Tiffany.
Tiffany, sorry.
Thank you. That must be my vanished twin. Agency.
Agency,
yeah.
yeah.
Well, action in a way.
I would put agency and action as different verbs and
Yeah, okay, yeah.
Verbs
I know
and
there's another half dozen that we're aware of.
And we'll bring in a little more about that and this sentence that, but see, the important thing is which determine our frequency. Okay, so these are just the definitions. We'll get into the assumptions that flesh these out, and then here's
a definition of the universe, which is not a sort of scientific cosmological definition. It's much more. You'll see it ties into the religions and the philosophies, the attempts that humans have made throughout time to give a name to this thing of which we're a part. A lot of people call it all that is, both manifest and unmanifest. It's also known as God, Creator, Atman, and so on. A lot of those names and words come with baggage. So we simply have chosen this very simple three-word term, the conscious, loving universe.
CLU. Get a clue?
Get a clue.
Do you have a clue? So,
all right.
okay.
So there you have.
Here.
Any questions on the definitions there? I doubt anybody here is really challenged by those definitions. I suspect we all live by some version of those ideas.
Yeah, none of this is anything new to you guys. It's just we're putting it into a perspective that maybe, you know, a way of expressing it that maybe gives new clues or a new perspective. We hope. So, so here's paradox one. There we say assumption one. We present a paradox. We live in a conscious, loving universe. There is only love. Okay, so this is a key statement that presents the paradox of not love. What about war? What about abuse? What about all the things we call not love? So here we have your basic equation. God is love. God is everything. Everything is love. But what about those things we see as not love? Does anybody want to make a comment on that? Because what we're saying is, well, let us do how we resolve the paradox, and that is that the universe loves us unconditionally. And I'm sure all you're like, oh hum, so what, you know? And we all know that, right? But what we don't understand, I feel, is the nature of that love. We have the habit of calling love kindness, goodness, compassion, all those things that we see and understand love to be. Well, from our perspective, the unconditional nature of that love is that it has to give us everything we ask for. Okay? And we don't understand another soul's journey. We don't understand that someone out of free will could have asked to be born in the circumstance that has put them in what we call harm's way, a soul contract to come and experience what we call not love. So if we take as absolutely true that God is love, God is everything, everything is love, absolutely, unconditionally, then the answers we get depend on the questions we ask. You know, how is this love? Instead of that is horrible, that is evil, that is bad. It's a big deal. I feel we have this habit, we're stuck in this place of duality, of right and wrong. And until we get to that field that Rumi's talking about, we will stay in this lower frequency of victim, perpetrator, blame, shame, guilt. It's a whole reality that we were describing in the earlier slides. So what we don't understand is what our requests are to the conscious, loving universe that loves us unconditionally. So, what we have said we've explained consciousness. We create reality by the power of our consciousness. Well, that presents a paradox in that if we're in a deterministic paradigm, then that's impossible because it just happens to us, and it doesn't respond to us. And we have the 7 A's of consciousness, which we just went through, and that they actually are our requests to this conscious, loving universe. That these 7 A's of consciousness are our requests and actually determine our frequency. So we can check on a daily basis. This is a tool that we can use on a daily basis to say, okay, what's up with my 7 A's today? You can get up and out of bed in the morning and say, okay, where is my awareness? And here's the sentence: with expanded awareness and accurate assumptions, we choose our attitude and consciously direct our attention, align with our highest inner promptings, take committed action, and allow the loving universe to manifest beyond our wildest dreams. So that's a tall order, because that action piece is a bummer. Because we've got to act from that place. All the Beatitudes and affirmations and all that aren't going to do the job. They may appear to do it, they may do some, but they're basically, we've got to put our body into that place where the magic can happen, into that line in the grocery store at the time. If we were supposed to go to work that day and our inner voice said, don't go to work that day, and you're like, I gotta go to work or I won't survive, right? But no, my inner voice said, stay home. Okay, stay home. Go to the grocery store. Oh, you're right in front of the guy who's gonna offer you the job you didn't even know you wanted. Okay? So, it's accessing the magic, going into the magic, taking that step over that line from doubt to trust. That is it. And Goethe, there's a quote by Goethe that says that there's one elemental truth, the ignorance of which kills splendid plans. You know that quote? He didn't actually write that. It was actually written by a Swiss mountaineer. But he says, once one definitely commits oneself, without the chance of turning back, providence moves too, and all manner of unforeseen circumstances, meetings, and material assistance come his way that he couldn't, unexpected, all that come his way, okay? So, that's it. That's the reality I want. I want all of those things coming my way by taking that leap into the unknown, into trust, because I don't want my little pea brain running my life. I want the universe running my life. So it's taking that committed action without the chance of pulling back. So this construct, one needs a construct of the nature of the universe to actually be able to really do it. So we hope that we've given you something, because we know you guys understand this, but taking it from the paradox level of, yeah, that's true, but I live in the real world, I've got to act like this. That's the paradox, that's the quandary of the paradox. That we hope that we are giving some tools for actually walking in trust of a conscious, loving, abundant universe. So, here's paradox number 3. Do you want to?
Sure. So, I said earlier that this free will versus determinism question has baffled us. We've never been able to figure that out. People are still trying to figure that out. So, are we free? Do we have free will? Or is reality determined for us? Are our lives, how much freedom do we truly have? And we've had enormous arguments with powerful philosophical friends who totally deny that we have free will. However, we are saying that free will is an absolute law of the universe. Any conscious entity has free will on some level. It's hard to say that a tree has free will because once it's planted its roots, it's not going to be able to get up and leave town. But the higher level of organism you are, the higher the level of obvious free will we have. Everyone in this room is here out of free will. I think we can all look back at circumstance intervening in certain aspects of our lives that put us here, but it was the choice, each choice we made that led to the next, which led to the next, that put us here in this room.
And how we resolve that is this overarching act of free will. When we incarnated, the definition of humanity is that we chose to incarnate on earth on our soul's journey to wholeness with a gift and a purpose. So we gave permission to the universe to take us on that journey. Okay, so we gave permission. We said, okay, universe, I'm going there. You can take me on this journey. Okay, so that was our overarching act of free will. So then circumstance comes and takes us on that journey.
So that's the kicker, because yeah, we have free will, but circumstance intervenes. How can this be? I'm going to get in my car and I'm going to drive from here to Phoenix, Arizona. And somewhere down the road, I get a flat tire, and the person who stops to help me is my next wife, and we head for Kansas City, Missouri. You know, I'm being silly, but you know what I mean? Circumstance intervenes, so it's almost as though there's sort of a higher level of knowing that operates for us. As Connie says, circumstance loves us more than we love ourselves. So it's that balance between free will, overt free will, I'm going to figure out what I'm going to do next and do it, and circumstance guiding us.
So here's that overarching act of free will with the definition of humanity. So then, paradox 4, assumption 4, there is only now.
Did we get through that? Did
Yeah,
that make sense?
We dealt with that in the,
okay.
yeah.
Okay. Time and timelessness?
Yeah, so we just touch on this briefly because the really important stuff that we feel we're bringing to the party is this love, not love, the absolute, there is only love. And the idea of free will and the soul's journey to wholeness. So here's there is only now, this precious present moment. Living trustingly in the now, we experience the true nature of the universe. Okay, so it's a huge paradox, but a now is, we feel, the gateway to the trust frequency, because if you aren't worried about what you're going to do next, and you don't remember what you did yesterday, I believe that we're actually losing the memory mind, and that's actually an evolutionary process to take us into the intuitive mind, because we can't get there with the memory mind. I asked many years ago, how are we going to get there? And my daughter was sitting at the kitchen counter and she said, Mom, what if everybody got amnesia? I'm like, Allie, that's it. That's the answer. We're just going to forget. So everyone who thinks they're having senior moments and blah, 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 whatever. And then I just started seeing people, saying, oh, I've had a brain freeze, I've had that, I was starting to lose that memory mind, because there's a unified field full of information, and the computers are taking us there. We don't have to contain it all in our minds. We can call it up on the computer, and there's going to be a day when we don't need the computer. Wallace Blackhelt, one of my very good friends, a Lakota elder, he just said, I ask a question and it comes across my forehead. Okay? So we don't need the memory mind, the intuitive mind that puts us in the infinite balance, that has us in the right place at the right time. And there, you know, we say there is no time, there's only perfect timing. You know, that whole spirit time thing, the whole native way of, yeah, if you're supposed to be there, you'll be there. If you're not, you're not. No judgment, just infinite balance.
You ever heard that expression, trust, T-R-U-S-T, truly rely upon spirit's timing?
Yeah, I could have put that in here.
Right.
That would have been good. I think I have that on that sheet.
Did you
So
say that
then-
one time? Did you say that again, what you just said?
Truly rely upon spirit's timing.
Trust.
Trust.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, that's what trust means.
And fear, false evidence appearing real. So then we have all of creation is one. Separation is a man-made illusion. We are the conscious, loving universe. So that's the paradox. Are we separate or are we one?
And the interesting thing, I think, is that what we experience is we're both. The challenge is to remember the unity, because we grew up, I think, in separation. We think we are apparently all in these separate bodies, and yet on a quantum level we know that we are one. We know that we're linked. We know that we're all interconnected. And I think the indigenous peoples of the world have never forgotten that. And I think we Westerners, once we got into that mechanistic mindset and worldview, we forgot. And we're in the process of remembering, and quantum science has been helping us with that.
Yeah, and it's been for a purpose. This whole process has been for a purpose because we are on an evolutionary upward spiral. Everything is happening for a purpose and a reason, we believe. And that there's only the coming of peace on earth and heaven on earth. As far as I'm concerned, it's absolutely true. And the question I ask everything is, how does this serve the coming of peace on earth and heaven on earth? The answers you get depend on the questions you ask. So I get a whole different set of answers. So it just depends where you put your attention, what your assumptions are and beliefs, you know. So are we on an upward spiral or are we on the downward spiral? Are we the blight of the universe, or are we the containers of the love that the whole universe is waiting for? I say that all of creation is awaiting the love in the human heart, for us to open our hearts and walk in alignment with the divine, with our divine nature, and all these things that we are all speaking about as love, as compassion, that we will bring that into our reality and bring that reality to pass. And I believe that the earth is actually moving into a higher frequency, that we have to do the work to clean out our subconscious, our feelings of lack of self-love and lack of alignment with the divine, our lower frequency stuff that we came here to do. It's why we came here to do it. So it's not like shame or, I have all this baggage. It's like, yeah, I came here to get that stuff so I can get through it and really understand my divinity and move forward with that and from that place. So that's paradox 6 and assumption 9, and then assumption 10.
The trust frequency is a real place of unfathomable joy, peace, and abundance that's freely available to anyone, anywhere, anytime. So that in the book is the 10th assumption, namely to truly trust the trust frequency, to truly trust that that is real, that it's not just woo, that it's not just illusion, that if we actually take everything we've spoken of to be absolutely true and base our reality on it, base our lives on it, to know that we can raise ourselves to this higher place, to trust that it's a different world, it's a different life.
Different reality. And John Lennon described it in Imagine. Jesus describes it on the Sermon on the Mount. Worry not what you're going to wear, what you're going to eat. Worry not, it's provided for you. The lilies in the field, they toil not, yet the Lord clothes them, all that stuff. Really, it's there in our faces. We just have to say yes and get it and live it. And we can transform our world and the collective, because everything, we're all connected. So every move we make to face our stuff and cleanse our stuff and move into our divinity and move into this place affects the whole universe.
You know, I think in addition to the whole planet waiting for us to wake up and open our hearts and take our place in where everything kind of fulfills the measure of its creation, is the whole universe. I think there's probably, you know, several star systems and all that, but
yeah, I say the universe, not the planet.
It's actually more important than we have.
No, absolutely. Absolutely. That's what I say. The whole universe is awaiting the love in the human heart, awaiting this whole thing. And the conscious loving universe is just showing up to look like this climate change, to look like the animals have disappeared. They've just gone through the veil. They're there. What we've created, the universe is responding to our assumptions. It has to. It has to create itself because it's conscious, it's alive. You know that your keys can disappear, right? Right? Whose keys have ever disappeared? Who's ever had a piece of jewelry that's gone missing and shown up someplace else?
I'm very careful where I put things down.
Yeah. It's alive, it's conscious. They are alive. The trees are alive. They are there because they love us and they want to give us oxygen. They don't have to. But they've shown up out of, I believe they have free will too, because look at our keys. They only stick around because we need them to. They often show us that they're conscious, just like we are. So here, we've just run through, well, here's the human healing the split. We go from fear of a random, uncaring universe to trust in a conscious, loving universe. And then what we do is our ego selves, which isn't a bad thing. That's us, that's our personality, it's everything that's come together to bring us here. And our divine self integrate through this trust, and we bring the true human to the table. So transformation through trust. And then society transforms, and spontaneously, ease replaces struggle, serenity replaces tension, generosity replaces hoarding, abundance replaces scarcity, unity replaces separation, new systems develop, new relationships replace outmoded ways of being, an understanding of the interconnectedness and sacredness of all things emerges, and peace comes to prevail on earth. Aho.
Mm-hmm.
And the opening of the human heart will release into the universe more joy, beauty, balance, and abundance than has ever been experienced by anyone since the beginning.
And
Trust.
you can summarize the entire thing in 4 words. Trust the loving universe. And honestly, that's what I've been practicing. When I first met Connie, we met at the Omega Institute in upstate New York. And she was living in her van. You've probably seen our van out here. Well, she at that time had a Chevy pop-top sportsmobile van. And we met there. And I visited her at the van, and she had a bumper sticker inside the van. And it said, "Trust the loving universe." So this is not new for this girl.
It's a good mantra. So we've got a little time. Would people like to join the conversation now that we've dominated?
Let me say that this is actually the makings of a workshop that we presented. This is about as brief a summary and overview as we can give of this work. If we had a week to be together, where we could spend 5 days and spend an morning and an afternoon on each of these assumptions, because they are challenging. It's not easy work. It's not easy to ask ourselves the question, what are my core beliefs? So what we've done is we've kind of skated over the surface in a sense. This has been a pretty superficial presentation. It's all we can do. But to dig deep and to receive information, give it time to mulch, give it time to set in. So what do we have? We tend to break it up into giving you, what we've done right now is we've given you information. That's only the first part of a 3-step process. You've received some information. Next step is contemplation, to contemplate that. So if this were a longer workshop, we would say, okay, don't talk to anybody, get up silently and take a walk. And just go and sit under a tree or go by the fountain and come back in 45 minutes. And let's then have dialogue. Let's have feedback. Let's have input. How do you feel about this? How do you feel about this? How does this impact your life? Can you actually trust the stuff that we're telling you? Is it totally a no-brainer and you've known the stuff all along and you really, really do on the deepest level? Or is this ridiculous and it can't be? You know, it sounds great, but, you know, it's woo-woo.
So the third stage, we'd love to, because we know that you guys are highly advanced in this stuff, and that you're empathic and healers and energetic, sensitive people. And we said we were feeding, you know, this is an intellectual exercise.
That's what I wanted to say, but not necessarily coming from the intellect, coming from the feeling body, coming from the heart.
So we're
let's have a little interactivity, shall we?
You mentioned, like, is this like, you know, real obvious to people? And I, you know, since I met you guys yesterday, remember it was, we had these conversations about assumptions and about, you know, really like that complete divine trust. I've been thinking about some stuff, and I you know, for all of my adult life, I have felt like I've been 2 people in one body.
Yeah.
And I think I'm finally, you know, at this age, finally coming around to seeing that it really is the assumptions and then my soul truth, you know, and then the universal truth. And just
Wow.
like, wow.
Getting chills on that.
When you started with schizophrenic, and I went, yes, and that's one of the first words you said today in this workshop, and I was like, there were times I just completely felt schizophrenic because you're just like battling these assumptions and you don't even know they're assumptions. You think that it is like how life is. So we grow up with these, you know, things that are ingrained in us and that we've learned, and you just can't imagine that, you know, that you would be that conflicted, but your soul is just like completely telling you something else. So you're trying to live with the assumptions, but your soul is longing here, so you're walking in 2 worlds. You know?
Yeah, the split in the human psyche.
Some biblical thing, it's called, what is that called, where it's like 2 minds or something anyway, so I think.
Bipolar?
It's psychological, yes, but I think it's, I think there's some sort of biblical saying, I don't know much about the Bible, but just like, you're of 2 minds.
Unless thine eye be single.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. It's
Is
about,
that it?
You know,
Could be.
the eye to single the God, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I just think this is really timely because it kind of puts it together like, you know, this is how we've been living and this is the new reality. And it would seem like it would be obvious to everybody, you know, to me, but it's just, it really isn't. I mean, I just can't imagine how deeply, you know, covered the veil. I mean, it's amazing.
But the good thing is it's thinning, yes.
For me, there's an old saying, and I don't remember where it came from, but the old man has died that the new may be born. And during that period, you do feel like you're 2 people working from 2 value systems. And that's the death of, you know, beliefs, assumptions, old values, whatever's been, you know, that you've accepted along the way as programming.
Yeah, and then if you add being the good girl, you know, too. So
Well, that's part of that programming.
Because you're being the good, you know.
And that's the program. That's the old, all of the old,
Yeah.
but the new, and that has to go, and that can be pretty painful.
Don't you see this
in therapy? There's a time, okay, just speaking as a client, but you have a behavior and it has a consequence that is later. You realize, oh my gosh, I said this and it made so-and-so feel this and they acted this way. And or you do something, I don't know, whether it's, you know, spit on the floor or what, but do something that causes an unwanted response. And you're not aware of it at first. And then when you are talking about it, gradually the moment of awareness, it approaches in time the moment of doing it, until you have this very uncomfortable time where it's, ah, crap, I did it again. And then it's worse, oh, crap, I'm doing it again. And then it's, ah, crap, this is the kind of situation in which I do this. Oh God, I'm gonna do this again. And you do, or even earlier, then you can start controlling it. But that really crazy time when you believe both, I shouldn't do this, I'm doing this. You know,
Yeah. That's what she's speaking about.
In therapy, to support the client, this too shall pass, and the awareness will come.
One thing I want to mention, and that is that person that you said something to, who never spoke to you again because you said something that made them feel abandoned, you didn't go to the movies with them. Well, what we say is serve yourself first.
Right.
That their soul is magnetizing your behavior. So you didn't go to the movies with that person and they felt abandoned, they never speak to you again, but something in you said, don't go to the movies tonight with so-and-so.
Mm-hmm.
And so you don't know their soul's journey. They needed to feel abandoned. And if you go out of niceness, I say don't ever accuse me of being nice.
Well,
If you go out of niceness, then you've robbed them of that opportunity.
I am having a little problem with this. We create our reality, and everything that happens to us we bring upon ourselves because, you know, there's something to be learned from it. I think that we can learn from whatever. I guess I've seen too many people. It effectively comes down to blame the victim, and that, you know, well, people are poor because they choose to be that way. People are born into abusive households because, you know, they want to be.
Well,
and so and the question is, what do you do about it? What's your response to it?
Well, we're proposing a different construct.
Yeah.
Yeah,
and I,
in fact,
and I
that
think
they did
it
choose
may
to
be
be
that they
born
do. That
into
doesn't-
an abusive family. So
that doesn't change my responsibility to respond to it in a positive way.
yeah,
You know,
that's
but
your
there are
soul's
people who
journey.
do that.
Whatever your soul's journey is, as part of this process, but you don't know another soul's journey. So, you know, it's one of those things one can.
But as a therapist, you've chosen your contract toward yourself to do your best to intervene in people's lives and to be of help, right? And so the people who come to you are those people who need help. Many are desperate. Many have gone through all sorts of stuff. And to come in with both compassion and dispassion, you know, sort of the Buddhistic sort of, I don't want to say...
detachment.
Yeah, detachment's probably the word, the non-attachment, right.
Non-attachment.
Right. To be able to really be helpful to somebody, you have to allow them through their process to let them know from this trust frequency perspective, to let them know that trust yourself, even if you've done this behavior and you're doing it again and God damn it, you're doing it again. Okay, trust that process, because if it's your path to get beyond that, you will get beyond that, and you have to trust that. And as a therapist, I'm certain it's very challenging to know what to do and to stay out of judgment and out of the right and wrong, to remain in that field beyond wrongdoing and right doing, so that you're not judging a client, because a client needs more than anything to be, I think, to be heard and to be nurtured in some way.
But not feeding the victim either.
Right, and definitely not feeding the victim. And the most challenging, I'll tell you what, this work that we do is inaccessible to the victim. Someone who's in a victim state cannot get what we're talking about.
Because that's their story and they're sticking to it, and poor pitiful me, and
Yeah.
Well, I totally understand because I come from this perspective.
Right.
My husband, on the other hand, thinks the universe is out to get him, and he's all about.
So that's why he's married to you.
keeping his guns and
Yeah.
stuff like that, and
Yeah.
so it's an interesting
Yeah.
Did you have something?
I was relating to what you were saying with the experience I have. I retired this year, hallelujah for me, and I'm a recovering psychiatrist. I worked for many, many years. So I've had a lot of experience with people, and I'd say that the people I work with taught me a great deal. I certainly hope I helped a few of them. But the way I relate to this is kind of an experience with healing and energy that really kind of transformed how I experienced how things happen as far as, I think a lot of us, we're pretty smart, we understand things, we can read books. In fact, we could read 1,000 books, but still never get to that place that they're talking about, because I think that this place you're talking about is an experience and not a paradigm.
Okay.
Because it's not, we have to use words because that's how we communicate, otherwise we're going to have to all be telepathic and be good at that, and we're not.
We will be.
What?
We will be.
I do believe that, and I think sometimes we actually are telepathic, but we're probably not at that level right now, at least not all of us. But so I don't even know if I can find words for the experience that I went through with some of the people that I worked with. But in the 90s, something happened to me a lot of things happened to me that I did not understand. And one of them was shifting, and I know I had a lot of universal help because I can tell you all that I did not know how or what was going to happen next. But it was shifted into being only in the now with no sense of time, which is a completely, I've never been there. I've never been there before, believe me. I had read about it, but that doesn't mean that I had actually been there. And I'm trying to find the right words to express this because I think that it relates to what you're talking about. How do I say this? There's a space, an energetic space in the room that is experiential with the person. And I'm really struggling with finding words for this. Where I know, and I don't know how I know, that they are also brought into it. And I'm in it, and they're brought into it, and I don't know how I got there either, but this is a space of being only in the now. That's the only thing that exists. And in that space, it's a space that's completely loving. There isn't anything else. So whatever everyday judgments or thoughts or ideas that I may have held or do still hold at times, they're gone. Now, I didn't make them go away. They were just gone. I'm just saying that when you're in this space, it's a heart space. It's only love, and I'm guessing some of you know what I'm talking about. And it's palpable, at least for me. You could feel it.
Is that the near-death experience that they described doing?
No,
the near-death
this is
No, I know you're alive, but the near-death people seem to
but it
experience that.
And you're
I'm
just
struck
talking with the client
Yeah,
at
so,
that point.
yes, and I'm sure that all of you who work this area, there's a holding space that has nothing to do with judgments or thoughts or preconceived notions. There's no judgment. There's no guilt. There's no sadness. There's no anger.
Yay.
No right.
There's a
wrong.
neutral lovingness.
Wow.
What do you call that?
Wow.
And in that space, in
That's
the
it.
absolute now moment, total miracles take place, and it
Wow.
takes no time to have them happen.
Wow, thank you.
And I don't know how else to say it. And all these things started happening. I started a group. I work with veterans at the VA. This is a challenging job.
Yes.
And we used to sit and talk. We talk therapy. We all know about talk therapy. Talk, until your brain's going to fall out and you figure this is not working. And, so many words and so much brilliant talk and nothing happens. So I thought, I can't do this one more day. They're talking and they're belly aching about who knows what all, and it's helping nobody, especially me. I was going crazy in this group. So I had a gurney in my room, and I decided to pull it into the group, and I had a social worker that I worked with, and I thought, oh my God, she's not going to accept this. And I didn't know I was bringing the gurney in the room. I can tell you right now. This was I'm talking in the moment. I'm going to do it. I even found myself saying to patients, I said, would you be open to a new intervention? And I'm asking them if they're open to it. I don't know what I'm going to do yet.
Well, this is Native American. The Native Americans come and they speak and they go, I don't know what I'm going to say, and I don't know what I just said.
Here it is.
Here it is.
And then all I can say is that the answer downloads.
Yeah, this is what they do.
So I'm
these
thinking
guys.
that's like living in the moment in total trust
Yeah.
It's the gateway.
You don't have any preconceived notion about what the answer is or what's coming, or I know that in 5 minutes we're gonna talk about so-and-so, because you don't know. So I'm pulling this Gurdian, and the social worker I was working with was thankfully very open. She was also tired of how it was going, and she said, sure, let's do it. I was amazed. Pull the Gurdian, so everybody shows up, and there's Gurdians in the room. It's like, okay, now what are we gonna do? What are we gonna do, you know? But it was as though, here's what really surprised me about me, because I'm not always the most confident person in the world, and I've lived with plenty of self-judgment and self-doubt and everything else that lots of people struggle with. So for me, what was so amazing about this time was to go in a room and be in a space of total trust that whatever needs to happen next is going to happen without any thought. Like, there is no thought.
Yeah.
There's no thought, there's no doubt, there's no worry. There's
Yay,
just like
boy.
a miraculous space, and then miraculous things started to happen.
We can't fathom.
And so
You know,
I
that's what we're
decided,
saying, in that
I
frequency.
decided, here's what I decided.
Wow.
I decided that my work
Wow.
went a whole lot better when I stopped running it with my pea brain.
There you go. There you go. Listen,
Wow.
folks.
What's your name?
Whatever it was came on in, and I thought, man, this is kind of easy pie.
Wow.
I don't even have to do anything.
Let me say something.
Why suffer and struggle when you can just
Exactly.
give it to me?
Wow, what's
Sorry,
your name?
but I just want to say that it is 5:25 or so. I've got a couple of minutes, and this whole operation runs on a fairly tight schedule. So I want to honor the timing here. I have one closing thing I want to say, and that's that unless we do this work around assumptions, and we look around at all the different people and the gurus and the therapists, how many people are truly dealing with assumptions in this way? So
Yeah,
I've been in the
everybody.
spiritual work world for a very long time, since 1969, I would say. And I've therefore seen lots and lots of people going through lots and lots of process, going to India, whatever it is, becoming Sufis, doing so much, and still struggling, still not there. And I think the reason for that is they'll take this new thing and they'll layer it over the old thing. Unconsciously inside ourselves are these sabotaging belief systems. And it doesn't matter what, we become a Buddhist, we hang out with the Dalai Lama, whatever it is, we still haven't dealt with the deep inner stuff. So
Well,
that's,
you
I
can
just want to
think
leave it at
anything-
that from my
You can think
perspective.
anything to death. I don't think healing happens here.
Right.
All healing happens in the heart.
Right.
I mean, if you can't shift a person's attention from this, which our culture is so into to a heart level, and whatever healing you're looking for I don't think it can happen anywhere except in the heart's.
Okay,
So-
so I just wanted to say that. Connie, do you have a wrap up?
Trust the loving universe.
Anything else? We are here. We don't have to rush off. So if anybody'd like to stay and interact, we'd love that. We have a bunch of our handout stuff, and there are these beautiful buttons, these total buttons and so on. You're welcome to take some of those things over there. The book's there. And I just want to honor all of these beautiful ladies in this room as the only
Thank you
man in
for
this room
coming.
for the whole afternoon. I am so honored. Thank you.
Thank you for coming. And just understand, there is more abundance in this universe than we can fathom. We came here to have abundant life. Okay, more than we can fathom.
We just don't know what to ask for.
We don't
gotta
know-
be open.
Or
Just
how,
open.
Or how to ask.
I don't, you know, the abundant universe, take care of me. That's all I want. I don't want to get it. I don't want to get this abundance the way it's being doled out, the way it is right now, because it's not, none of it's working. You know, it's just give what you have, receive more than you can fathom. Spirit said to me, stop counting. You're strangling the abundant universe. You know, we've got to, you know, there's a big bag and we've got a little thing here and nothing can get into it because we've got a grip on it. So anyway, I just wanted to leave you with those little pearls.
Thank you, everybody. I wish we had a lot more time because there's a lot here.
But how about her experience? Did she describe hands-on, experientially, the trust frequency miracles happen right there and then?